Good day, everyone. I'm Arvin Enriquez, your subject teacher in General Mathematics. With this video lesson, we're going to discuss the topic solving problems involving simple and compound interest under your General Mathematics from Quarter 2, Module 3. Our lesson objectives. At the end of this video lesson, you are expected to solve problems involving simple and compound interest, and apply the different formulas involved in a simple and compound interest environment in solving problems. Let's now deal with solving problems involving simple interest. One of the most common scenarios in our daily lives is engaging ourselves in a business transaction. It is all but natural because many actions that we undertake involve money. For example, if we decided to buy food, clothes, or even we pay our monthly dues or monthly bills, for example, electricity and water bills, no? So those stuff, no, or those activities that we are dealing every day, weekly, monthly, there is an involvement of money. Moreover, when we are talking about money, we usually involve ourselves with the different problems that need solutions, especially when it comes to the computation of interest and the total amount to be paid at the end of a particular term. So, even you are a borrower or a lender, we should consider how we compute the interest. Because if you're a lender, if you can show how to compute the interest, it attracts borrower that can borrow a money from you, and you're as a lender, you make funds available for them. Now, you're going to apply an interest on it to the principal that each of the borrower will borrow from you. Then, at the end of the term, what will be the future value and maturity value? No? That's why it is important for us to know how to compute, no, the interest that will be dependent on the agreed uh, rate of interest between the lender and the borrower. Now, in dealing with the solving problems no, involving simple or even compound interest, let's try to use this George Folia's four-step rule, no, that we can apply for us to easily, no, solve a certain problem about your simple and your compound interest. So your first step is to explore. So what are the things that we need to consider in your first step? So this step involves careful reading, analyzing, identifying the given and unknown facts in the problem, and expressing the unknown in terms of variable. First thing you need to do is to read the problem. Yes, it is no. There is no such thing that you can solve a problem without reading. So after reading, you need to analyze. What are the things that you need to consider? What are the things that you can do to solve this problem? Now, the third step in this, or the third sub-step, no, in your first step, no, which is identifying the given and unknown facts. By simply identifying the given, you can provide the idea what formula you can use in finding the unknown facts in the problem, which you can use letter or any symbols that will represent these unknown variables. So we can simply use a letter, no, that we can assign to express these unknown values in the problem. So that will be your first step, is to explore. And for number two, you need to plan. So in this step, writing an equation that describes the relationship between or among the variables involved. Sure, you should look for the relationship, no, between your dependent and independent variables in your given problem. So from that dependent and independent variables, no, in the given problem, from the known and unknown values, we can then actually look for a keyword or words, no, that is being mentioned, no, in the problem. From that note, we can see the relationship between your variables involved. Then we can simply write an equation that will represent the condition being given on that particular problem. So that's your step number two. In your step number three, you need to solve, no? This step requires working out with the written equation and other number relations to determine the required quantities that answer the question in the problem. So, meaning to say, right after you explore and you plan, you know your knowns, your known and unknown values or variables, no? So we can actually substitute now your given values for us to solve for the unknown variables, no, that we assign for a certain uh, representation of for that particular problem. Now, right after solving, we don't need to accept first, no, the computed values. What we need to do next is to check if if the answer or the computed value or values that we get from step number three are correct or not. So this final step that employs the use of other approaches to examine the appropriateness of the answer. Yes, it is, no. It is difficult for us to come up with an answer without checking. Why? Because it lessens the validity and reliability of this answer. What we need to do right after solving, right after getting an answer, no, for a particular unknown variable or variables, then we need to check, no. That will be the final step. Before we conclude that this value is our final answer, we need to check first. So that will be your fourth step of George Folias. Now, let us take the following examples dealing with solving your problems involving your simple interest. For number one, Marielle deposited 16,000 pesos in a bank that offers a simple interest rate of 1.75%. If she placed the money for 7 years, how much interest will she earn? Next, Janice has a loan with an interest rate of 1.5%. The amount of interest is 2,250 pesos for a period of 3 years. How much is her loan? So the question for number one is the interest, and for number two, what will be the principal, no, that Janice decided to borrow from a lender? In solving the problems, we will use the steps provided. So for number one, again, Marielle deposited 16,000 pesos in a bank that offers a simple interest rate of 1.75%. If she plays the money for 7 years, how much interest will she earn? So the question is that we're asked to find the simple interest. Now, for step number one, we need to explore. So after reading and understanding the problem, it will be determined that the required component is the simple interest and the following are the known value. So there is a given value for principal that will be 16,000 pesos. R for the rate of interest which is 1.75% and your T or term is equal to 7 years. So it should be in terms of year or years, no. So you need to check if the given value is in terms of months, you need to divide it by 12. If the given value is for quarter, you need to divide this one by 4 for us to convert this given value, no, in terms of year or years. Now, for the second step, we need to plan. So since the value of simple interest is required, so we all know that the formula for your simple interest is equal to the product, no, between your principal, rate of interest, time, or term. So this will be the formula that we're going to apply for this example number one problem. So next step is to solve. So since there's a given value of your P, your R, and T, in this case, we just simply substitute the given values to the given formula for your simple interest. Again, using the formula, we will arrive at your I sub S is equal to 16,000 multiplied by 0.0175 multiplied by 7 years. So the simple interest for this one is 1,960 pesos, no? Then for us to check, no? As for checking, we can use other formulas related to simple interest, no? And substitute the value of simple interest. If the obtained value is any of the given facts, then you obtain the correct answer. So therefore, Marielle earned, no, 1,960 pesos as an interest, no, to the money that he deposited to a bank. So for number two, Janice has a loan with an interest rate of 1.5%. The amount of interest is 2,250 pesos for a period of 3 years. How much is her loan? So we're asked to find the principal, no? So in your Explore, we need to read, analyze, and to look for the known and unknown values. So the known values are, so your simple interest is equal to 2,250 pesos. Your rate of interest is which is 1.5%. So before we substitute this given value, no, to your given formula, we need to convert this one to decimal. We just simply divide your 1.5% by 100 to make it 0.015. And for your time and term, so that will be equal to 3 years. Now, the unknown value is that your principal or your present value. So we're now looking for the value of your P. Now, since it's the same process, no? Since we know, no, we know that the given formula for this simple interest is IS, no, is equal to PRT. Then for your second step, which is your plan, no, we just simply divide the entire equation by RT, and to cancel the RT, no, at the left side of your equation. So your principal now will be equal to your simple interest over your rate, over the product, no, between your rate of interest and your time or term. And for the next step is to solve. So using the formula we will arrive at, so we just simply substitute the given values to your problem, no? That will be your 2,250 as your simple interest, your 0.015 as the rate of interest, and 3 years for the time or term. So if we simplify this one using your division as your operation between your numerator and denominator, then we can arrive to a principal which is 50,000 pesos. So as for checking for the last step, the formula in finding the simple interest can be used. So we just simply use the simple interest in finding or in checking if the answer or the computed value is correct or not. Now by simply checking, we can arrive to that idea that your P now is 50,000 pesos, and that is correct. So thus the amount of our loan is 50,000 pesos. Now, let's deal with solving problems involving your compound interest. So there are instances wherein the borrower were surprised because the amount of outstanding balance were changed when they failed to pay their monthly dues. So this happens because instead of simple interest, the lender used compound interest in computing the maturity or future value that this borrower borrowed from the lender. So as we define your compound interest, this will be an interest on interest. Meaning to say whatever your principal on the first uh, month of payment, for example, no, the simple interest being applied on the future value after your first month of payment on the maturity date. So whatever the result there, that will be your future value or maturity value after the first month. But again, once we are talking about your compound interest, so whatever your future value or maturity value after your first month of payment, that will be now your principal. No? That's why on how we compute your compound interest, it will be dependent on the principal and the interest. Unlike in your simple interest, it's only dependent on the principal. So, as a borrower or investor, we must be aware with the different conditions stated in any transactions we engage in. Our ability to be critical in whatever transactions that we will do, we will be great help in this topic, which is solving problems involving your compound interest. That's why in our last module, I said that if you are a borrower, choose an institution or individual that makes fund available for you wherein they will offer a simple interest. But as an investor or as a lender, it is good for you to deal with an individual or institution no, that can provide you a compound interest because your money will earn more no using the concept of your compound interest than dealing with a simple interest, no? So let us take the following examples. So first one, Jasmine borrowed money from a bank at the rate of 1.89%. So that will be the rate of interest compounded semi-annually. So meaning say when we say semi-annually, it represent no 6 months. So there are two sets of 6 months in a year. So if that is in that's the case, we need to divide no the given value by simply dividing by 6 for us to know the conversion period. So if the amount she borrowed is 13,000 pesos, how much interest will she need to pay at the end of 6 years? So now that will be the question. What will be the value of the compound interest being applied on what just been borrowed no, to a bank with this given rate of interest and uh, mode of payment, no? Or time or term, I mean. So in this case, now, for number 2, Arthur wants to set aside an amount to be invested in a fund which is your 1.02% compounded quarterly. We all know that every year there are 4 quarters. So if there's a given value, for us to know the conversion period, then we need to multiply by it by 4 or divide by 4 for us to convert this in terms of year. If he wants to accumulate no 250,000 pesos in 4 years, how much must he set aside? So now that will be the question. Now it's the same process. So we're going to apply no, the steps provided for us. So the fourth step. Now let's deal with your first example, which is Jasmine borrowed money from a bank at the rate of 1.89% compounded semi-annually. If the amount she borrowed is 13,000 pesos, how much interest will she need to pay at the end of 6 years? So first step is to explore. So know, look, read, analyze, and look for the known and unknown variables. So the known values are your principal is 13,000 pesos because this will be the amount he borrowed no, from a bank. Then your I raised to 2. Why is that your exponent here is raised to 2? Because it is compounded annually. So semi-annually, So meaning to say that there are two sets of 6 months no, in a year. So that will be equal to 0.0189. We just simply divide this 1.89% by 100 for us to convert this one to decimal. So your M now, or the conversion period, is 2. Why is that it is 2? Because there are two sets of 6 months per year. Your semi-annually will represent, no, it will represent 6 months. So if we cut 1 year to 6 months, so there are two sets of 6 months in a year. That's why it is 2. Now, your T now in terms of year is equal to 6 years. So the required variable is the compound interest. So we're asked to find the value of your compound interest. So our plan. So since the problem suggests that it is compounding more than once a year, the formulas are. So we just simply apply this formula for your future value and your compound interest, which is equal to your future value minus your principal, will be employed. So there is a need to find first the maturity value because it is an important element in the compound interest formula. So we just need to look no, for the value of your future value. So right after dealing with your future value or after looking with the value or right after computing no, the value of your future value, then we need to subtract your principal on this resulting value. And that will be your compound interest now. The next step is to solve. So using the formula, we will arrive at, in finding your future value, we just simply substitute the given value for P, which is 13,000. We copy your 1 plus 0.00945. So that will be your J now, raised to 12. Why is that it is 12? No? Your time is in terms of 12. and your F now is 14,553.29. So after finding the maturity value, we can solve for the compound interest, no? So your IC now is equal to F minus P, no? F minus P. So your IC is equal to 14,553.29 minus 13,000, and your compound interest now is 1,553.29 pesos. Now, if there are questions, why is that it is 12, no? In your exponent here, so your time here will be dependent on the number of 6 months, no? Set of 6 months multiplied by the number of years. Since there are time or being involved in this problem is 6 years, no? In every year there are two sets of 6 months. That's why we multiply these two by 6 years, and that t is the conversion period. So there are 12 sets of 6 months within that particular time frame, no? And that is 6 years. So check. As for checking, the formula in finding the present value can be used. Now, the interest now is 1,553.29 pesos, and that will be your final answer. So for the activity, solve the following problems. For number one, Jamie invested a certain amount of money in JDJ Savings Bank with a 2.5% interest rate. He received 2,250 pesos as interest after 2 years from his investment. How much did he invest? And for number two, how much should be deposited in a bank paying 1.15% compounded semi-annually to accumulate an amount of 80,000 pesos in 5 years? So thanks for watching. So please like and comment and subscribe.